Welcome to Reconciling SaaS, the interview series where I talk to accountants with innovative business models and growth strategies and the people who build software for that industry. I'm Guy Pearson. I'm a recovering accountant. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ignition, and we're joined today by my very good friend, Michael Wood, co-founder of Receipt Bank, aka Dext, and now founder and CEO of Translucent. Welcome, Michael. Can you give us an overview of your accounting tech journey to date? So I guess how did Dext kick off? And there's probably a lot to unpick there. And then the second part is going to be why Translucent.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. So how did Receipt Bank start? Receipt Bank started because I was, and probably still am, that thing that I think many of your listeners will recognize. I am that idiot client. So what happened was I was running my first business. This would have been around 2005, 2006. This was in the UK. And in the UK, MYOB was in the UK at that point. And they were, I can't remember what the product was called. Maybe it was Essentials. Maybe it was something sort of predates that. But they were very much advertising themselves as the easy-to-use accounting software. So I thought, oh, I want to save on accounting fees. I'm going to do this myself. So I did the books and got to the end of the year and submitted the software file as was. I'm trying to remember the right language now. They submitted the software file. And my accountant, she was very nice. And she said to me, well, Michael, normally, a sort of business like this, it would be 2K a year to, complete all the year-end work. But you've made such a mess of your file, it's going to be about 4K to sort of undo everything. So that's the very beginning. So what she did was she said, look, there's an even easier piece of software out there to use, and I think you should use that. And there was a bit of software called Cashflow, and that's Cashflow spelled with a K. And those people in the UK, some people in the UK might remember it was the original cloud accounting software in the UK. So in 2007, I became a user of cloud accounting software. So that made me one of the earliest cloud accounting clients in the world. So I used it in 2007, used it in 2008, used it in 2009, and it was all really good. But I saw something that was quite interesting. Is previously when you had the cloud accounting files, whether it be Sage, MYOB, whatever, it was very clear whose responsibility the bookkeeping was. Whoever had the file was doing the bookkeeping, and hence, of course, again, for older members of the audience will remember the shoebox of receipts, the Tesco carrier bag of receipts. I don't know what would be the Australian phrase. Would it be as a Woolworths carrier bag of receipts?
Yeah, that would be correct. It'd still probably be a shoebox is the most common thing that was dropped off. But yes, bag of receipts from Woolies or Coles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Coles. Well, yeah.
And what, Safeway or Costco in the US? Like, what would be the equivalent?
Yeah, I think they use shoeboxed a lot more, whereas the UK would be sort of the Tesco carrier bag of receipts. The sort of the unit. What is the unit of receipts? But anyway, so what happened was over these 3 years is the bookkeeping had become my responsibility because basically the ambiguity, because there's a single ledger in the cloud. And also because, I'd be late to doing things, again, typical clients, I'd be getting reminders, Michael, deadline coming up. Can you please, send us the stuff? I'd never be sufficiently organized. So for each of those 3 years that I was doing that business and was running a copy of Cashflow, I would lose a weekend at the end of the year of having to sort of find all these receipts and invoices and upload them online. And of course, that would be annoying because of the loss of time, but it'd also be annoying because of the loss of cost. Because it would be things like, oh, I know I took more taxes than this, or where's this invoice? I can't find it, but there's now no time. So I felt I had a significant problem that was I was losing time and money because of the bookkeeping now being my responsibility. And so I looked around for a solution, and I was aware of, different scanning softwares and things. I was pretty tech aware, and so I was aware of different things. So I looked around and came across a business in the UK called Receipt Farm. And Receipt Farm, it wasn't saying it had anything to do with accounting, but they did do a service, whereas they would say, for £10 a month, we'll send you an envelope. You stuff all the receipts into that envelope, send it back to us, we will scan them, and we'll extract the data. So I thought, this is exactly what I need. This is perfect. So signed up, did the free trial, and it did exactly what it said. It was brilliant. Sent the envelope off, they scanned everything, sent me an email saying, log in now, here's all your receipts, all the data extracted. And I was like, well, this is amazing. This is problem solved. Definitely going to sign up. But I sent an email to customer service saying, guys, I absolutely love this service, but there's two things that I find a bit odd. One is, as soon as that envelope goes in the post, I think I'm done. I don't think this is anything more to do with me. So do you have the ability for my accountant to log in and pick up the data? And two, do you have an integration with the cloud accounting softwares? And of course, in my case, at that time, it was Cashflow. This is now 2010. And they wrote straight back, like within minutes. I've still got the emails as Mr. Wood, thank you very much for your email, but we're closing down today. And I was like, that's really annoying. I've just solved this problem. And that's a little flippant, because there was quite a lot of serendipity. There was the serendipity of, I'd been a cloud accounting user for 3 years, and I was aware this is going to be a big thing. This is going to completely supplant desktop accounting. It was another thing because the individual who ended up being my co-founder at Receipt Bank, Alexis, he and I had already agreed, let's start a new business together. So we were looking around for something to do. And so we wrote back to them and said, we'd love to buy this. And that ended up being the transaction, and that ended up being we I don't know, 8 weeks later bought the software and things from Receipt Farm, and it took us about 6 months to turn it into Receipt Bank. And basically those two questions at the very beginning were the core of the business. I knew the accountancy space well by this point. My business was that I was what would be called a fractional marketing director, or CMO today is what it would be called. And so one of my clients was an accounting firm. So I knew the internal process challenges of an accounting firm. And so I knew that actually Receipt Bank was much more interesting as a workflow for accounting firms than it was as an individual SMB service. I knew integrating with the accounting softwares was absolutely key. And so that was the business we launched. We actually, although we bought it late 2010, it was February 2011, Receipt Bank was launched, and we were able to take money. Such was the time it took to get things like merchant accounts back then.
Even bank accounts.
Yeah, even bank accounts. Please Stripe. Again, we're showing our age, Guy. But anyway,
100%.
So that's how Receipt Bank started.
So I'm not sure if you still hold shares. So you'd be happy to know we still use Dext at Ignition. So you might be happy for that. You may not mind. So the journey, if I recount correctly, so 2010 to 2017, so 7 years at Dext. I know you were sort of involved in various ways and shapes and forms over that time. The transaction where you sort of, let's say sold for simplistic sakes to HG, you were out of the day-to-day at that point. I remember we had a pretty honest chat, and I hope you don't mind me sharing. It's sort of like, that wasn't necessarily the intention when that transaction came up, in terms of how much you were planning on stepping back. What forced, or what sort of created that? Because I think for the entrepreneurs, whether they're accountants or software vendors, are probably interested in terms of how do you leave your baby, so to speak.
So the key moment of leaving was really 2017. And what happened in spring of 2017 is, this is 7 years in, and Receipt Bank has been, as I know Ignition has been for you, it's completely dominated life. And dominated in where you are. You're having to crisscross the world, flying to Silicon Valley, flying to Australia, going to France, going to Singapore, whatever. Dominating in the the time in a day. Like I'm sure virtually everyone listening to this, it's your business. The amount of mind share it occupies and things like that, and the amount of work that needs to be done every day. And of course, the sort of sense of responsibility to team and clients and things like that. And what happened in spring 2017 was we started to do a new fundraising round, a Series B. And the business was going very well. It was always going to be very easy to do a Series B. And this was going to be a notable round for us because it was the first time Alexis and I were going to be able to sell some of our shares. So again, another pressure I very much felt after 7 years is, I'm trying to think how old I was then. It shows how old I am now. I can't remember how old I was then. I think I was about 40 or 41. And in theory, I'd made a lot of money with Receipt Bank. It was a valuable company. But my personal balance sheet outside of Receipt Bank was absolutely zero. I didn't own a car. I didn't own a house. I didn't have savings. I didn't have a pension. And so I was very much feeling that pressure as well. And so we were going to do this. We were going to do the Series B, and it was going to be the first time that we were going to be able to sell some of our shares, and I'd be able to do stuff like buy a house, which is, and that was the plan. That was the plan for 17. And then our acquisition offer came in to buy Receipt Bank at the same time in parallel. And I got the phone call, let's make it up, it was a Tuesday. I got the phone call on the Tuesday, shared the news with Alexis, shared the news with the board, went to bed, and I woke up the next day and realized I was shattered. So the fact that they'd made an acquisition offer for the whole business the day before, but emotionally, obviously what it was to me was the opportunity to step back. So I hadn't realized how tired and drained and emotionally shattered I was the day before, because it was just, and again, I think everyone listening to this will, your head's down, build, keep building, make it bigger tomorrow than it is today. And I'd never allowed myself the time to, how are you, Michael? How are you feeling? How's this going? And the acquisition offer was just like an earthquake in my life, because it was, someone is saying you could step back. You could pass this on to someone else, all these responsibilities, etc. So over the next few days, I had a chat with Alexis, and then I had a chat to the board to say, I don't mind whether we accept the acquisition offer or do the Series B. As I say, the Series B was already coming with selling some shares, so there was always going to be a bit of financial freedom there. But the acquisition offer was key because it made me realize I need to step back. And by that stage, I can't remember what the headcount of Receipt Bank was. Let's say it was 300 people. We had senior managers everywhere. We had lots of capable people like Sophie, like other names people here might know, Nelson, Ella, etc. Lots of incredibly Gabriel, lots of incredibly capable people. And apologies for names I'm missing out there. But we had lots of capable people around the world, and I knew I was in safe hands. So yeah, it was a really odd few days of, I started the week heads down, building, we're raising more money, everyone uses metaphors like we're putting more fuel in the tank, but there's not normally contractual obligations that come in with doing a round. Like there's nothing contractually that says you, Mr. Founder, have to stay for another 3 years, but there is moral obligations. There is, you are part of the business and we're investing in you. So I had to move quite quickly to sort of say, look, I've suddenly realized I'm shattered. And actually then my health got pretty bad, and still hasn't 100% recovered. So that journey of 7 years, although amazing, and I'm super proud of what I achieved, and I'm super proud of the businesses I believe we helped along the way, and I'm super proud of the team, and obviously financially in the end it was a great result for me. Oh my god, it took a chunk. And Guy, you must recognize all that. You must recognize that.
100%. It's funny, like, I think everyone sees the size of the stands, the bright lights, the size of the teams, the fact you're flying around. There's a little bit of envy to some of it, but candidly, to your point, it's all paper dollars. And similar to yourself, I rolled off starting an accounting. I left my accounting firm 3 years in. No one makes money in the first 3 years, candidly. And I was ceasing to be an employee, and I rolled straight into a software startup trying to figure out how to build software, which I also thought would be easy. Yeah, candidly, I thought the billing engine was going to take a year and then we just roll out and we have a small team and we build $1 billion business. And it's just easy, right? And the opposite is completely true. But that ability to take some cash off the bank, because banks hate people like us who run loss-making businesses despite their growth rate at the time. And so the ability to sort of like plant some roots down, have other people involved with the business is game changing.
Yeah. I'd love to give a shout out now, Guy, just because there is, like, you and I both know, like, obviously there's many software entrepreneurs involved around the accounting ecosystem, and many that I don't know, but for Richard at Spotlight, for Gareth at Unleashed, for the Fathom boys, there's a whole lot of people. Nick at GeoOp, as was, there's a lot of people who, we didn't have teams big enough to attend. If Xero did a 20-city roadshow, we were going 20 cities around Oz. If there's then a roadshow in the UK, the next month you're on the plane back to the UK and doing the UK roadshow. It's and of course we
were all flying at the back of the plane.
Oh yeah, oh god, no. Yeah. So the idea does any yeah, absolutely.
Sharing Airbnbs. And Roger and Chris, all those guys. It's just all the early days.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lovely camaraderie around that time. There really was, but also it was, you're doing the day job. You're at you're manning the stand, and in the evening you're probably answering customer service queries and all the all the other bits.
Doing demos and other geographies. Chatting to your shareholders.
Yeah, exactly. And again, so I don't want to anyway to say, pity us. Running any business is hard, and that's again, Alexis, my co-founder, that was one of his maxims. Is very good of, you can look at other businesses from the outside and they sometimes look easy to run, and they just never are. Every business is hard.
100%. So we're going to accelerate a little bit from here. You took a break. Very happy that you got your health mostly sorted. I know that's a bit of an ongoing thing. We won't delve into that. But you started effectively a think tank as you started to feel better. I know you're really close with Nick Bartlett, and you threw some ideas around with him as well. And there was a moment when we were chatting in between the sort of the after post Dext where you're just like, well, I'm not going into accounting ever again. And it's not because you didn't enjoy chatting with accountants or anything like that. You're just like, I want to do something else for a while. Now, then I got an email kind of out of the blue. It's like, Guy, I want to talk to you about something. Like, sure. And it's, I think, probably from running Dext as a background, and I know this from running Ignition. It's like, how do we keep people on these SMB cloud accounting packages, but kind of give them enterprise tooling? I'm thinking about dipping my toe back in to go and solve that problem, and I think my jaw more or less hit the floor because I was like, what happened to political think tank and other things that we talked about, and you're back here again. So what inspired that? I guess that look into that problem specifically, or what sparked your interest?
Yeah, so after running Receipt Bank, as you say, we won't go into here, but I'm sort of super interested in enlightenment. I'm super interested in carbon capture. I've got all these sort of other interests that I was very keen to pursue. And carbon capture, I ended up becoming an angel investor. To anyone that there's doing carbon capture, I'm very interested in that. And looked at other things. But it just over time, knowing the accounting space really well, knowing the SMB finances space really well, I just feel I've got a very good sense of what that's going to look like in 2030. And it was the same feeling I had in 2010 of, I had absolute certainty that the cloud would be dominant by 2020. And it's worth saying, we had Receipt Bank board meetings where there were board members in the early days that we should close this down. It's not working. And it was me as absolutely, no, we're not having that conversation. This is absolutely, it's going to happen in 2020. So there's about to be a sort of series of sort of evolutions that are about to sort of come and sort of change accounting once again. They're going to be changes as big as desktop to cloud. And they come from a variety of angles, but one of them comes from the deflationary cost of software, i.e. the cost of producing software gets cheaper every year. And we had a big bang in software from 2010 to 2015 because of two trends. One was the cloud, which you could sort of aka broadband, i.e. the ability to host and people's ability to access that hosted data. And the other one was mobile. So you saw this explosion of new businesses from 2010 to 2015 because of those two trends. But what obviously happened was the pace of innovation is, frankly, I'll be polite, dropped significantly since 2015. And that creates this opportunity for this new trend. And this new trend has been pioneered by let's call them a payroll company in the US called Rippling, and they pioneered something they call a compound startup. And what that is saying, actually, we can do a super app. We can do a large number of apps in one place. Because the cost of developing these apps is much, much lower, we can do it in one place. And so that really interested me because I know everyone is fed up with all these vendors. And this isn't an accountancy thing. You can be a CTO in a retail business, or you can be a CMO in an ad agency, or you can, a CFO in a manufacturer. Everyone is grateful for the superpowers software has given them over the last decade or so, but the status quo of the industry is not stable, i.e., to do your day's work, you're logging in and out of a large number of tools with basically each workflow having its own tool. Now, it made sense that happened in 2010, 2015, but it doesn't make sense. We still have that now. And that was the insight that Rippling had of, well, wait a second, because of the deflationary cost of software, we can bring together a large number of apps in one place. And so as you alluded to, Guy, at Receipt Bank, we'd experienced the problem of multi-entity, and we'd experienced the problem of outgrowing Xero. And so around sort of 2015, I think we were 8 Xero entities. In the end, we moved to NetSuite around 2017. But so I'd seen all this firsthand. It'd always been a problem that stayed with me. And frankly, it'd been an idea I tried to give away to a few other entrepreneurs of like, oh, there's a huge need there. But when I saw what Rippling were doing, I thought, actually, that would be fantastically exciting to do, to be able to go back and create super apps for this space. So to be able to say to the CFO, look, you're a multi-entity business. You don't want, and sorry, you're on Xero, or you're on, you might be on something else. You might be on QBO in America. You might be on Penny Lane in France. You might be on Datev in Germany. But actually, SMB systems are great. They're really good. Xero, fantastic solution. So you don't need to upgrade. Very, very rarely does someone need to upgrade out of it. But I can understand why people are upgrading today, because there are significant limitations. Zero is not designed for multi-entity. Zero data is limited to the tracking categories, so therefore 3 dimensions. Zero has limitations in its permissions model. There's all sorts of very reasonable limitations Zero has. And frankly, we at Translucent can solve them all. And so that's what we've built. So Translucent is the solution to running multi-entity. So, and we think we're going to do something amazing for these CFOs, because there's no need to migrate up. You know, I know some people will, you know, like if you're going to IPO, you're probably still going to move to NetSuite, but all those other businesses doing multi-entity, you know, we're going to solve all those multi-entity problems and workflows in one place, so you can stay on Zero. So that was the super app possibility that brought me back. And we're also speaking to a lot of accountants about building the equivalent super app for accountants, because they've reached out to us. So anyone, feel free to contact me, DM me if you're interested in being on sort of the alpha for that. But that's what we're doing. And then we've got some pretty cool stuff going to come over the next few years, because we think technology is at a place like it was, for those that fondly remember sort of Rod's keynotes 2010 to 2015, where Rod was able to say, guys, look, this is coming next. This is coming next. We are back in that era where we're going to be able to do that. And Translucent are looking forward to working with people like Ignition, people like Zero, to give those firms that want to be differentiated in the forefront of the industry those superpowers.
Awesome, mate. Appreciate you sharing. Maybe I don't need to give you the plug at the end, because I feel like that was a pretty big one. But
no, just telling you like it is.
I feel the passion. I understand the problem you're solving. We run a multi-entity. It's not too dissimilar to Dext. I think we have 6 Zero subs for all the subs that we've got. And my finance team wrangles with stuff all the time, so I appreciate the problem. You announced funding round not so long ago, and if you compared that to the early days of, say, Dext and raising, have you found it easier as a second-time founder than a first-time founder of a software company to sort of raise those funds? And then I guess any advice, particularly if perhaps for a first-time founder is looking to raise a round at the moment, because it's tricky times out there.
Yeah, so it's completely different, but it's completely different for 2 reasons. So one is, again, if you go back to that, let's even call it up to probably about 2013, 2014, there wasn't really a VC industry outside of Silicon Valley. And so
maybe New York.
Yeah, maybe New York, and obviously there were, there were some firms in Europe, and they would sort of, I'm sure Index, etc., would quibble with that sort of blanket statement, but there wasn't really that industry, and you'd have people that would say they're So and then they'd ask for 3 years P&L and balance sheet, and it's like, well, this is very odd, and things like that. So obviously there is far more institutions that understand this asset class now, and there's far more money around for software businesses. So that obviously is a huge change. There is no question, if you're a second-time entrepreneur who had a successful first business, which I was fortunate to have, it does make raising money the second time easier. There's no point sort of pretending it's not. It is much easier. People are okay. The space. You have the track history. We'd love to back you, which is lovely. The advice I would give is, there is a lot of money out there, and although the market is hard for later rounds, actually the seed market is holding up. So, i.e., the first check that people often write is holding up very well. So I think my advice would be very different from many other people's. If you're getting a lot of no's, I would listen to those. There probably is something you're missing, I would dig into those no's rather than, I know many people would say, it's about sort of pushing through. And, obviously many famous entrepreneurs have stories of, I got 50 no's, like I think Airbnb, I can't remember they got sort of 50 odd no's before they got a yes and stuff like that. Like, obviously that endurance is really important, but there is a lot of capital out there. And I must admit, when I hear from people that, oh, I can't raise money, normally when you then look at their idea, you can see why they can't raise money. There is some in there. So I would say if someone is struggling to raise right now, I would go back to everyone that said no and really push for the feedback. And some of the feedback, frankly, will be rubbish, but some will be good. And that would be my bit of advice.
I'm obviously a huge fan. I think people should get to know you a little bit better. So we've got some fast, rapid fire questions, which are more like fill in the blanks. Okay. There's no right or wrong answer. I've customized a few of these just for you.
Great. So there's going to be at least an embarrassing. There might not be right or wrong answer, but there can be embarrassing.
Sure. So we'll start with an easy one. My favorite thing to do on vacation is?
Right now, flight boarding.
Flight boarding. Perfect.
So I don't know if anyone's flight board out of Byron Bay. They're these sort of electric surfboards that lift up out of the water. It's like you're flying. It is amazing. So everyone, go to the coast. You can rent them. They're not cheap, but you can rent them. Do it. Like, kids, anyone from 6 to 60, love it. Amazing. Flight boarding.
Perfect. Next question was going to be on the weekend. You'll find me, but that might be flight boarding as well.
Flight boarding, or I do have a dog, and no, he's not here tonight. He's normally in the background somewhere. So there's quite a lot of dog walking going on as well.
Fair enough. If you had a choice, would you go to a concert or a sporting event?
Sporting event.
What's the best sporting event? Okay, so is the Ashes, like, given you're British?
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Okay.
That'd be
perfect. That's cricket for our North American friends. The kind of like the not baseball version. That takes a very long time, 5 days for a match.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap things up there. Before we go, I will give you one chance to tell us what's happening in your world, Translucent's world, 2024. Give us a quick wrap up and a final pitch.
So I don't think I'll give so much of a pitch, but just also have talked about Translucent. We're doing this thing, a compound startup, which is several apps in one, or many apps in one. We've got a long list of about 30 apps we're building. I'm not sure how many Rippling are. Rippling must be beyond 20 now. It's really hard to build. It's a new business model, just like building a SaaS company 10 plus years ago was something new. So my world right now is it's hard. You're learning a whole lot of new things. Of course, everyone, if you think about running any business and running a team, it's all about a single purpose. It's like, okay, we're doing this, we're aiming at this. You can't do that in a compound startup. The example I always use, like that kids game, when you sort of pat the head and rub the stomach. That's what you're doing in a compound startup, because you're constantly saying, okay, we're making that app on general release while putting this app into beta, while we're writing the initial sketches for the next app. So everyone in the team is constantly having to do multiple things at once. Now that might change when we get a lot bigger. But we think the benefit is going to be worth it for both accountants and CFOs to be able to have an app where they can do many workflows in one place. And of course, the permissions are all set, the security is all set, metric definition is only done once, et cetera. We think the benefits are there, but it's hard work to build, and frankly, that's obviously what I came in, the idea of doing something completely new, in terms of new business model was the excitement. But yeah, my days right now are quite tough working out how to do that. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. But we think we're doing something really cool, and I think people are going to love it.
Perfect. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us in your morning, my evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you in the flesh,
Yeah,
hopefully not too distant future. And I just really want to thank you for spending some time with us.
not at all. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.